Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu Folge 9 des Podcasts der Atlantischen Akademie Amerikas Verfassung, Politik und Gesellschaft in den USA. Mit dabei sind David Sirakow
und Sarah Wagner. Auch in dieser Folge gehen wir mal wieder neue Wege. In dieser Ausgabe vor einer kleinen Sommerpause hört ihr unser Gespräch mit der scheidenden Generalkonsulin der Vereinigten Staaten von Amerika in Frankfurt am Main, Patricia Lacina. Als kleine Vorwarnung, das Interview ist in Englisch. Dieses Gespräch und die gesamte Folge haben wir am Morgen des 14. Juli 2021 aufgenommen. Zuerst aber, bevor wir ins Interview gehen, wie gehabt, unser Ausblick auf die kommenden Veranstaltungen.
Es ist Sommerzeit, das bedeutet, unsere nächsten Veranstaltungen warten erst wieder Ende August auf euch. Und aktuell läuft noch unsere digitale Summer School. Hier eine kleine Vorausschau. Wie sieht die Zukunft der NATO nach Trump und Afghanistan aus? Dieser und weiterer Fragen werden wir uns am 28. August 2021 in unserem 24. Atlantischen Sommer widmen. Sofern es die Corona-Maßnahmen zulassen, wird das unsere erste Präsenzveranstaltung in diesem Jahr. Gemeinsam mit der Gesellschaft für Sicherheitspolitik und der Deutschen Atlantischen Gesellschaft laden wir euch herzlich nach Bad Neuenahr-Ahrweiler zu einem spannenden Seminartag mit Dr. Gordon Friedrichs vom Heidelberg Center for American Studies, Esther Kern vom Brandenburgischen Institut für Gesellschaft und Sicherheit in Potsdam und Dr. Falk Ostermann von der Universität Gießen ein. Und am 31. August werfen wir in einem Online-Vortrag einen Blick auf das Thema Amazon, Airbnb, Uber, digitale Ökosysteme aus den USA, Bedeutung für die Region und Deutschland. Die Veranstaltung ist Teil unserer Let's Talk America-Reihe und findet statt in Kooperation mit dem Fraunhofer ISE. Diese Veranstaltungen findet ihr natürlich in den Shownotes und auch auf unserer Website unter www.atlantische-akademie.de/Programm. Und nun zu unserer Unterhaltung mit Generalkonsulin Patricia Lacina. A very warm welcome to the very first guest on our podcast, the Consul General of the United States of America in Frankfurt am Main, Patricia Lacina. Welcome.
Thank you so much for this invitation. I'm honored to be here.
We're excited to have you.
You will be leaving Germany as early as August to take on new tasks. Thank you so much for your time and for being willing to come on our podcast. Before we talk about your profession, the connections to Rheinland-Pfalz and transatlantic relations, a few words about your CV. In July 2018, Patricia began her service at the Consulate General in Frankfurt. She's a career member of the Senior Foreign Service with 32 years of experience in diplomacy, management, and policy coordination. Previously, she served as Principal Deputy Executive Secretary in the Office of the Secretary of State, as well as Deputy Chief Information Officer for Business Management and Planning and Chief Knowledge Officer. Patricia completed tours in Cairo, Vienna, Brussels, Buenos Aires, Nairobi, Moscow, Bogota, and Mexico City. Now that's a quite impressive list, and it sounds like a very interesting but also challenging job. So my first question would be, how did you become interested in the field of diplomacy?
Well, I tell people I'm a zufällige Diplomaten. I didn't really set out to do this. I'm a teacher by profession, a special education teacher, and I was teaching in South America, specifically in Colombia. Decided I would go to graduate school and, major in some kind of development, with an educational, outlook. And I had a professor who told me that he was the chair of my thesis committee, and he told me that he would not sign on my thesis if I didn't sit for the Foreign Service exam. So I said, "You can't do that." He said, "You watch me." So I thought, well, it's one exam, what the heck. So I didn't even really know what the Foreign Service was at that point. And then I passed the written exam, I took the oral exam, I passed that, and then, they called and offered me a place in the training class that was in 1989. So I came into the Foreign Service right after Tiananmen Square happened. So that was kind of a, important time in history to, embark on a career in foreign policy and foreign affairs. So it's been a great career.
So you have been to so many places all over the world, and don't worry, as many other podcasters, I will not ask you which one's your favorite or to have you or have you pick a favorite. But what I think would be interesting for our audience here, tell us a little bit about your job at the U.S. consulate in Frankfurt and sort of what the mission of that specific consulate entails. So what does your day-to-day look like, and what is the mission of the consulate itself?
So, that's a good question, Sarah. So many people wonder, what happens in these diplomatic missions. We are a consulate general. We are the largest consulate general in the world. And what we do is varied. We have a large team ranging from a big consular section that supports our citizens overseas in things like getting a new passport and registering births abroad and getting immigrant visas when people get married, all kinds of things like that. We also issue visas to students so they can come and study in the U.S. So all those consular things, that's a big part of what we do. But we also have a large law enforcement community that liaises with German law enforcement and working on everything from taking bad people, arresting bad people who are lurking in the darknet to working on drug cases. It runs the whole gamut. We have partners in every part of German law enforcement. We partner with Germans on many other issues, whether we're talking about protection of the environment or talking to supporting other countries when they're trying to have full and fair elections. We have such a wide range of things that we collaborate on and support each other on. And so my job is really to make sure that here at the consulate that we partner with our German colleagues on all these things that we can, but also to do a lot of outreach, to explain America to the German public and anyone else who happens to be living in Germany, to build bridges with people, to develop contacts, to help people go to the United States and learn about the United States, whether it's as a student or in an exchange program or as a fellowship. All of these wonderful programs that we have with the Germans, we try to contribute and support those. There are just so many things we do. I talk to schools. I encourage people to have conversations about the transatlantic relationship and to ask questions that we can answer. We develop contacts in every realm of society. So every day is different. We're always looking at how we can connect, in a better way with German society. But we also have a large task to take care of our staff that is here. And that has been one of the big challenges during this pandemic, is making sure that everyone is healthy and safe and, has the tools they need to do their work, whether it's in the office or from home. And supporting each other as people, try to figure out, how to keep connected with their families in other places. All of those things are also very, very important. So it's never the same day twice, never dull. And work is there's always more work to be done. So that's kind of in a long nutshell what we do.
No, that's why the podcast format, is perfect for this. Thank you so much for elaborating on it. And I think that's also great because that's what makes a job exciting, that it is not always the same and that you get to meet so many new people. And, that is also has been part of our cooperation of the Atlantic Academy with you guys. We've been hiking together. We've had, 4th of July events and yes, meeting new partners, networking, sort of reaching across the aisle. So it's really crucial also for our work, the work that you do. You mentioned in your answer also that part of your work is explaining America to a German audience, right? Explaining government policy. So my follow-up question would be, I can imagine that can also sometimes be difficult, right? As a diplomat, it is your requirement to present government policy. oftentimes regardless of whether you personally agree with it. So how hard is that to do sometimes, to represent government policies that you might not personally agree with, or that you can't reconcile maybe with your personal opinion?
I would say that I probably speak for all of us here, as professionals working for the U.S. federal government, that we understand when we come into a position, we swear an oath to the Constitution. It's not to any one administration. We understand we will work across administrations if we're going to have a long-term career. Administrations come and go and have different priorities. And it is our job as professionals to figure out how to help each administration achieve those priorities. But it's also our job to highlight issues that should be taken into consideration when making decisions about priorities and how to approach them. So that is the reason that you really do need long-term, long-standing diplomats in the field who become experts and have a real understanding of the country and the people there, and how our policies, the effect that they have on the relationship, and we're able to report on that objectively, and then that gives the administration the best information possible to make their decisions.
As Sarah already pointed out, we have a very, very close and good cooperation with you guys. But you are also responsible for 3 other states, which all have strong representation of the so-called German American institutes. Mm-hmm. How have you experienced working with the GAIs?
Wow, they're really strong partners. We've always been very excited about working with them. I feel like our cooperation has gotten even stronger during the pandemic. The GAIs have definitely been coordinating more, sharing. We're reaching a wider audience, so that's very exciting. But they're really, for us, eyes on the ground, ears on the ground. They give us feedback, things that we can leverage to reach out to more people. They are always engaged. Some of the ideas that people come up with are so creative. So I feel like they are, it's a geometric expansion of our reach and our influence. From really very smally, very thinly staffed institutes. Just people, using what they have and being creative and working really hard. We just reap so many benefits from it.
Well, we are certainly happy to hear that. Compared to the other states that David mentioned, Rheinland-Pfalz has a very large U.S. military presence. Mm-hmm. So how does that change or impact your work, right? Because you're representing the U.S. State Department, and the U.S. Defense Department plays a pretty big role here in our state. So can you talk a little bit about maybe the cooperation with sort of the defense branch of the U.S. government, and how that large military presence influences your work, or sort of what challenges might that also present for you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we look at the large military presence as a big benefit, because these are Americans who, everyone is an ambassador. They live with German neighbors, their kids go to German kitas and schools, and, some of them have jobs on the local economy. So for us, that is just a huge win, because they gain the insight into Germany. They go back to the U.S. with this real love of their time here, great memories, keep friends, and vice versa. Living next to an American, the German family gets to know them. The kids are friends. So that is a fantastic benefit. Sometimes there are challenges, of course. We've had several incidents where, we've had something happen that was beyond our control, or that we had to have, discussions about, whether it's, something on the base that happens, or there's an accident, or they're all obviously when you're co-located and you have two different nationalities and speaking different languages and having different cultural norms, you always are going to have some friction points. But everybody from the mayors, to the folks who welcome Americans, and they all work really hard to keep those things to a minimum. And rarely do they come to my desk. Usually they're resolved, at a different level. So I am very appreciative of that. But in the main, and everyone from the minister president of Rheinland-Pfalz on down expresses always their appreciation for the great collaboration with the military and how grateful they are that they're there, and what a bonus it is for everyone. So I think those small bumps in the road are just that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. You can see the popularity of American neighbors, especially during Halloween times, because you have all the German kids flock to the very specific American neighborhoods, and that is just say, Halloween is a very good soft power cultural export here. Very much German-American interactions happening there.
I think we can support your perception of this relationship between Americans and Germans. Americans in the state of Rheinland-Pfalz are in a way also ambassadors or representatives for their country and their transatlantic relations to some extent. How have you experienced the German-American relationship here in Rheinland-Pfalz?
Well, obviously very positive. I mean, I know that my position is a bit different than, the average person's, but I have done everything from, city visits, talking to mayors who are, very positive about our relationship and, wanting to expand things, talking about sister cities, hiking, visiting cultural sites, even resolving problems. Everybody puts a very positive spin on it. So I have nothing but great things. Even when I just have been on vacation in parts of Rheinland-Pfalz, it's beautiful. It's so nice to, drive along the river, or, have a glass of great wine from the region. There's so much there. And people are always really excited to show it to you and to point out to you what's special about Rheinland-Pfalz.
Yeah, and it's also, I think for us, it's exciting and also important that you as the CG are willing, to partake in all these activities. Because you mentioned earlier, right, the consulate is so large. There's so many administrative tasks and the large team you have to take care of that we can, imagine how much time and energy that takes up. But I think it's especially these people-to-people connections that you can foster when you're out and about. And again, whether it's hiking through the national park, or I do remember you were here to visit or get to know our Welcome to Rheinland-Pfalz program, right? Where we did like a little city tour and brought Germans and Americans together. So we, again, I just want to stress that we really appreciate that. And I think that's such an important part of, the consulate's mission to really get out, to interact, especially in times looking back when maybe the transatlantic relationship is a bit strained, right? Or there are some challenges or difficulties. I think that it's even more important to get out and talk to people and, discuss issues, which conveniently enough brings us to sort of the third section of our podcast here, where we just want to dive a little bit into the transatlantic relationship overall. And I think David will take over here.
Let's talk about maybe recent history and the future of transatlantic relations. And the past 4 years, I think, have been quite challenging for transatlantic relations. And the advocates of these relations, to some extent on both sides of the Atlantic, have come under increasing pressure. So how do you see this time, the last 4 years, in retrospect?
Well, I think we did have some challenging moments, but I feel like on both sides of the Atlantic, we use those challenges to really ask some valuable, deep questions. Everything from, okay, where is our relationship going, which is a pretty existential question, to, how can we get our message about, whatever the issue is, burden sharing for the military. How can we reach people and get them to think like we do? So this whole range of issues, I think those conversations are very, very valuable, even when they're difficult. And I tell so many German audiences, and, they kind of look at me like, really? When I say, I have served in 32 years. I don't even know how many countries I've served in and how many other ones I've visited. There is not one single country that cares so much about their relationship with the United States as the Germans. There is not another country that has all of these amazing organizations dedicated only to the transatlantic relationship and the furthering of that relationship and the strengthening of that relationship, to ensure that it lasts over the long term. That is something so unusual and so positive about being in Germany. And I think you all, it's a part of how you grow up. And so you just see that as normal. And that is not my experience in other countries. It's not the way in Mexico. It's just not that way. And so this is something that is a real strength that you all bring. And of course, the United States, in turn, has organizations dedicated to the same. So as long as we're doing that and having these conversations, and there are so many people like you all who are dedicated to that relationship, we're gonna be fine. Where I see our challenge, and this is why I try to talk to so many high schools and universities, and why we really try and get the word out with the younger audiences, is developing the younger audiences to have that same dedication and that same understanding of the need for that transatlantic relationship, and so that they come up and they're the new generation that takes that on and continues and builds on what we've done. And so I see that as our big challenge, to keep the younger generation focused on the importance of that and being very active in that.
So bringing Rheinland-Pfalz back in this discussion about transatlantic relation, do you think that the state of Rheinland-Pfalz in particular can play a special role in bridging these difficulties to some extent because of its close societal ties, so the ties between Americans and Germans here in the state?
I definitely feel that you can. And you also have a lot of journalists who are very friendly to the transatlantic relationship. You get some very, very positive reporting. I've done some interviews with different journalists on the relationship. So I feel like because of that special bond that exists between the large number of Americans, both military and non-military, that live in Rheinland-Pfalz, you're positioned, really, the state is positioned to be very supportive. In all my conversations with the minister president, she's definitely very supportive, as are people in her cabinet. So I think that, as I leave here in a week, sadly, the relationship is in very good hands. And I know that my successor will come in and be very, very positive and, ready to engage just like I was.
I'm happy to hear that you also stress sort of in your answer when we talk about the resilience of the transatlantic relationship, the role of institutions, right, such as the Atlantic Academy or the other German-American institutes, because that has also been our experience that for a lot of people, or the headlines are often shortened to transatlantic relations equals, the government-to-government contact, like the high-level government-to-government contact. Yeah. And in our experience, that is oftentimes not the case, because even when that relationship has been, a bit more strained in the past few years, there is so much interest by the German audience, like people attending our events and media requests, because as you said, it's almost like a little German obsession about how much we care about the United States and how invested, we feel we are in this relationship. So yes, thank you for highlighting that aspect of the relationship. And I think we agree also that this will be the challenge for the next couple of years to figure out how to really not only include the younger generation when it comes to building that transatlantic relationship, but also how to let them write, their narrative and how to have them build this relationship based on maybe joint interests or joint challenges. And it's interesting in this times of change. So the United States just had elections. Germany has elections in September. And this week, our Chancellor, Angela Merkel, is visiting Joe Biden. So when you look ahead, in the transatlantic relationship, what do you think are sort of the biggest challenges or maybe even opportunities for this relationships in terms of maybe some policy issues that you think maybe could be easily resolved or that we could work on together even more?
So I see all of the multilateral issues as being really key. Yes, trade will be important, but these multilateral issues like addressing huge world health problems such as the pandemic and how to prevent another one, that is going to be an issue for years to come. Combating climate change, that no country can do that on its own. Two countries cannot either, but we need leaders in the multilateral arena, in the UN, so all of these governors and mayors and city planners that have been working together for years, their role is going to become even more important as we get countries to not only commit to cutting their carbon emissions, but acting on execution. So those kinds of issues that really involve the entire world, those are going to become even more important. And we can't, there's no way one country can do it alone. And the EU can't do it without Germany. So this partnership is just going to become more and more important as anything one country does has some kind of ripple effect on the rest of the world.
It's quite challenging at the moment. I think the future will show us where we can cooperate, where we can make change, necessary change. Current discussions in the Western Hemisphere, but I think all over the world, focus on the state of democracy and the threat authoritarian populism poses. Where do you think the most work needs to be done when it comes to us strengthening democracy? Well,
we all have to, at some point, look inward and see what we are doing in our own countries, how the situation is. There's such a range of issues to talk about when you talk about strengthening democracy. It's not just voting rights. It's not just the technological security of your elections, but it's also how are immigrants treated? How are they integrated into the society? What rights are they given? It's such a wide range of issues, and the strong democracies have to be honest with themselves about what their own issues are before they can help other countries resolve theirs. And it's very difficult to get a country to listen about what they should do when they see us doing something different. So I think getting our own houses in order is very important. And then, we're going to have to look at the effect that the pandemic has had on democracy. A lot of people have, unfortunately, very tragically moved from the middle class back into poverty because of, loss of jobs and other things that have happened due to the pandemic. So we're going to have to address those kinds of issues. So there's no lack of work for us, and we're just going to have to address these issues, in a way that we can work together with our partners.
Yeah, I like that, especially your statement about, being aware of your own issues before advising others. That's, well, I'll take that with me. Also, it's good for interpersonal relationships. That's good advice all around, Patricia, not just for international relations. I love it.
So true.
All right, so we are getting pretty close to ending this podcast.
Yeah, we've almost made it. So
Yes.
I have one final question, maybe.
Sure.
When it comes to your future now, your next post will be, as far as I know, will be in New Delhi as Deputy Chief of Mission. So
Right.
What are you looking forward to most, and what will you miss?
So I'm looking forward to just an exciting new place to get to know, all kinds of opportunities to travel, eat different food, all kinds of things. A new country is always very exciting. It's a part of the world I don't know, I have never worked in. So that is really an opportunity for me for both personal and professional growth. What will I miss? I will miss so much. I've made so many wonderful friends here. I will definitely miss the wine from Germany. I will miss my hiking. I will miss, the wonderful parks here. Just the clean air. I know I will really miss that once I get to New Delhi. So there are so many things that Germany has to offer that I will miss, but yet I look forward to, new challenges and new things to appreciate in a completely different environment.
Yeah. And so from our side, we wish you all the best for this new adventure in your life. And we're sure it's going to be exciting and rewarding, and that there are many great people in India who can already be very excited to meet you and get to work with you. And just know we will always have a glass of chilled Riesling waiting here for you. So if you're coming back through Germany, we will be ready. And once again, we've worked together now for quite some time, and we've had joint events and so many meetings. So we are very grateful for your work, for the support you have given to the Atlantic Academy, also in some stressful times for us. So it is much appreciated. And we wish you all the best to you and your family for this next phase.
Thank you so much.
By the way, is there a special spell or saying among diplomats, something like always fair winds and following seas or so? So we wish you all the best.
Some people say that. I think most diplomats would tell you we never say goodbye. It's always see you later, because you come
great.
across people again, and I've been telling people for the last 3 weeks, all roads lead to Frankfurt.
Very
so
true.
I will definitely be back. Definitely.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Patricia, for joining us here today and for all your hard work.
Thanks for your time. Yeah,
Thank
it was
you.
really great.
All right. Bye-bye.
Das war Folge 9 unseres Podcasts Amerikas Verfassung, Politik und Gesellschaft in den USA. Wir würden uns sehr freuen, wenn euch diese Sonderausgabe gefallen hat. Ihr findet den Podcast auf unserer Website unter www.atlantische-akademie.de/podcast, auf Spotify, Apple Podcasts oder von wo ihr sonst eure Podcasts streamt. Gerne könnt ihr auch einen Kommentar und am besten natürlich eine positive Bewertung, beispielsweise bei Apple Podcasts, hinterlassen. Wenn ihr Themen oder Ideen habt, über die wir einmal sprechen sollten, dann könnt ihr uns natürlich auch Bescheid sagen und auf unserer Website das Feedback-Formular verwenden. Wir freuen uns schon mal auf Folge 10 und wünschen euch bis dahin alles Gute, eine schöne und gesunde Sommerzeit. Passt gut auf euch auf.
Und auch von mir eine schöne und erholsame Sommerzeit.